Good
Got it.
morning.
Good morning. I'm tired in a way that I just want to like sometimes you have to be honest with yourself and other people where like, listen, last night I don't do it often anymore, but there was a Halloween party and it was a lovely time at the Halloween party. And this morning I'm just like, hi, how you doing? It's good. I'm fine. I'm fine. Don't worry about it. That's why Sundays were made. You know,
Exactly.
you can't do it all the time, but you gotta do it some of the time, I think.
Well, that's why I noticed that when you requested a later time, I figured there was probably going to be some sort of like shenanigans last night.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it wasn't. It's funny because, like, oh man, what shenanigans? The shenanigans were over a night. I had three whole beers and two whole shots. Like it's
Yeah,
not what it used to be. It's
it's
not.
not a rager like when you were
Yeah,
when you were 19.
we put on Nightmare Before Christmas really quietly, and like that was it. Like that was. It's good. It is good to grow old. You know,
Mhm.
it's not everyone gets to do it, but also sometimes you catch yourself just listening to Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me, and you're laughing, and you're like, oh God, I used to be somebody. What happened?
Well, no, I think, but at the same time, I think people like you and me, like we've been listening to Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me since we were much younger than we should have been,
But
right?
it was like a secret. You didn't tell
Yeah,
anybody. You were like, oh yeah,
exactly.
I'm right now. I'm not listening to Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. I'm listening to something cool like Limp Bizkit. You
Exactly,
know?
right.
Hey, Andrew,
Hey, Brandon,
start that timer.
let's do it.
Yeah, growing old and like growing old and being I think as also it's hard to keep the passion alive as an artist as you grow older, and like trying to make it like I don't want to say art is a young person's game because I don't believe that necessarily, but the first few steps of doing art are a little bit easier when you you didn't wake up and your back hurt. I think you like that's the whole thing about what we do. I think is what we're trying to do is most of this work is about keeping the passion alive
Mhm.
while trying to be a person that is worth being around as a legitimate human being. Because like
Yeah.
I don't want to be a garbage person to be a good artist. I want to be a good person and a good artist at the same time.
Mhm.
I think when things get real for me, I'd rather be a good person than a good artist sometimes. I don't know if that's always true, but that's
Yeah.
how I feel in my heart. How do you feel?
I think now I would agree with you. I think there were probably times in my life where I would deceive myself into thinking the opposite is true. Um, because I think what I mean is like there were times in my life where I think that it would be okay to sacrifice um, relationships or other things that might be considered the standards of like having a being a good person. It'd be okay to sacrifice those standards for the sake of art. But at this point in my life, I agree with you. I think it's better to be a good person. Yeah.
I know, like I also like I want to make art that is true to myself, but I also want a self that is worth being true to.
Mhm.
Like I want that and I don't know. Personally, I guess I can play. We just recently because I think he passed, right? Jerry Lee Lewis just passed. Is that what happened?
Well, he did. It seemed like he kind of passed twice because I think the first time was a rumor.
Yeah,
But I think this time I think it is true. Yeah.
yeah. So the thing with like Jerry Lee Lewis, and I like Jerry Lee Lewis's music, but
Mhm.
there's some real gross stuff in there that I would like to not. When people talk about me, I'd rather them not have to separate the art from the artist.
Well, and that's actually a discussion that I have with a lot of my students sometimes because like in it's always like whenever we're talking about music history, the biggest example in music history is this guy named Wagner, who was this big anti-Semite, and but at the same time, like he created this incredible music and really pushed the boundaries of music itself. And like his art wasn't about anti-Semitism.
Mhm.
His art was, you know, totally different. But as a person, uh, not only was he, uh, not only did he like influence Hitler, which is true, he did influence Hitler, but he also was just a terrible person. Like people, no one liked to work with him. He was a dictator, that kind of thing. So yeah, I agree. And like, you can even hear, there's even examples of people like John Mayer, being a douchebag, and it's like,
Dude,
you know,
track
and
19, the new Taylor Swift drop, on that bonus track, really giving it to him.
there you go. Yeah.
Well, it's also one of those things that you want to like. I think for me personally, I've talked about this a lot. Is I'm trying to figure out what a positive example of masculinity is, because we've
Mhm.
talked so much about toxic masculinity and male negative influences. And while I present and feel male, I want to be a positive version of that. And what
Mhm.
that isn't always clear, because
Mhm.
like artistically, I do want to stand up for myself, and I want it's my vision. Gosh darn it, we're going to do my vision. Some of the time, but also like I don't mind being a person who's difficult to work with if it makes sense. Put the painting up that high. Now, I don't know if I've ever been in a position where you want to be able to stand up for yourself and not just be a people pleaser, but also and know your boundaries, but also create a space that other people feel that they are welcome as well, and not just I'm not I'm going to say this, we perhaps there are people who are, perhaps John Mayer are not brilliant enough to be a jerk, and thank God for that. And I
Mhm.
have been a jerk in the past. I have slighted people with words accidentally quite often. um
Yeah,
but
I can't, I mean, I can't say that I'm proud of, everything that I've done. I certainly have regrets, and I assume that everybody has regrets, a little bit. But yeah, and including myself, there's definitely like examples that I can think of ways that I treated people that certainly wasn't the best. But I think that what you're talking about though, like with having, I think it does come down to values, like saying, hey, move the painting or whatever, it's like uh yeah, you don't do understand yourself. You have a vision, that needs to
yeah,
be and there it's definitely in theater, uh and the theater, so a lot of the theater that I've been involved in, there's some disagreements, and things like that. So I think that's a little bit different. That's not really, being a douchebag. It's like uh it's having values, I think that
yeah, it's
yeah,
knowing your boundaries
yeah,
and having a vision and wanting to move towards that vision.
yeah.
And it's important to be, trying to figure out how to say this, because like kind with your heart and selfish with your vision.
Mhm.
Like, really go, this is what I want, this is how I want it. And even if that's what I want is to be collaborative, is to be firm. And like, I think for me, one of the big parts of doing art and having other people do art with you, if you are in the position that you have to make decisions, by God, it is your job to make decisions.
Mhm.
And right or wrong or indifferent, you have to go, this is what I want, this is how I want it, go forward. And if you get pushback, maybe you can listen to that pushback, and you can be a person who listens and comes up with conclusions. But at some point, if you are at the head of the ship, it's your job to decide what direction you go. And you can't, if someone says white or black, you can't always pick gray. At some point, you have to be like, this is what I want, this is
Mhm.
how we're going with it. And I think,
Yeah, and I see where you're going with this because um there has, in most organizations, like there has to be a leadership role.
mhm,
And I think what we're kind of getting at is like, where's that boundary of, okay, you have the leadership, you have to have the vision, you have to fulfill that vision, and by fulfilling the vision, you means you have to make decisions to get there. And where is the line of, okay, uh I've got to fulfill this mission
mhm,
without antagonizing other people.
yeah,
And I think that's the challenge, I think, that we're talking about.
absolutely. And it's a real challenge, because you're trying to, it's trying to treat people like people while treating them as a group, trying to treat people like persons, and also trying to treat them like people while also respecting your audience's time and making sure that they have a product that is worth them seeing. Now, them worth seeing it, it might be the punk rock fu whatever, but that's still the decision you need to make to get there. You know. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know this is what we were going to talk about today. This
It
is a
was
good conversation.
at first it was going to be about t-shirts.
Yeah,
But then
I like how I like where this went, and
yeah.
but I don't want to neglect the t-shirt because I did notice you were wearing a very cool t-shirt today.
Yeah, so this is a t-shirt I designed, sorta. I'm gonna bring it up. I wore the wrong color for it. So
Mm,
here's how I did it. This is why I think you're gonna like it.
mm,
So I use an editing program. That's how I make all the visual art. I always terrified it's gonna go away. And they now have an AI generated thing, right?
mm,
So in the AI generated thing, I took a very simple, like barely a drawing,
mm,
and then wrote a very simple command into it, and then filtered it out, and then this is like partially AI generated.
okay.
So like it is the reason it has like unevenness. I didn't pick all of that. Literally, I drew a line, a line, and then a C, and then a bottom line, and then wrote a skull that is also coffee, and whatever it gave
Huh.
me, that's what I made from there.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
So the new thing I'm working on right now is these partially AI generated shirts, and I
Mhm.
think so. I talked to the people about it. And I'm like, do I own this? And they were like, yeah, probably. And I was like, well, until then, we'll deal with that. But yeah, I like it because it's still silk screened. It's screened by hand,
Yeah.
but it's using it's almost like misusing technology to create like this, because it wants to create these gorgeous Picassos and stuff. And I'm
Mhm.
like, no, I need you to make a t-shirt logo, please. And it's like, it's okay. What's wrong? Can you get down? Oh, she didn't like that. Um, you go?
Well,
Okay.
well, it's interesting because with this image, and then you've sent me a few others. They actually, I think, because you're maybe doing the combination of something, they actually do look like stuff that you would design, I think.
I try,
Um,
and I also try to pick stuff out that looks like, everything's fine. That's staying in. That's what the podcast means right there. Oh man, that's high quality podcasting moments right there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Brandon hits a wall, and while talking about making new T-shirts. Yeah, this is the stuff that people want to see. Uh,
Absolutely.
but yeah, the idea is the idea is to find stuff that looks like what my work is, and also what I like, what is it's taught me, and it's chilled me out a little bit,
Mm,
is I can't make what my work looks like exactly in AI,
mm,
which makes me feel like the Yonko stuff. I can't get Yonko out of AI generated stuff,
mhm. Okay.
which is nice. It's good to know that at least what I have, I'm not what AI generation tools are, and they are a tool,
Mhm,
but what they do is scary still. If
mhm,
you make art and you still like, you can explain it all away, but you type some words in there, and then you get this thing, and
mhm.
like, who made it? Because I didn't make the program.
Yeah.
So and I drew, this is a few quick lines
Right.
and a very simple prompt, and I'm like, well, it's mine. And like
Mm.
that does still feel weird. Like there is a level of, what is it, when you don't know what's going on. Um,
Ambiguity. Yeah.
yeah, of ambiguity of creation that
Yeah.
doesn't feel great, you know?
Well, and actually something that I just thought about because um, I know you and I probably like off the I'm not sure if we talked about it on the podcast or not, but I know we've talked about something kind of similar. Just, but the thing that I just thought about was I like I would say that the image is yours. Like that would just be my thing. But the thing that might get kind of confusing is that okay, what if two people put the same prompt in and get the same image?
Well, what's interesting
Um,
is you
Same.
don't get the same image. Like every time you
Right.
get to something different. And these dudes start with a basic, while it's a doodle, a basic drawing.
Yeah.
So like that helps out a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. We don't really have a lot of answers on what this thing is, who owns what.
Hmm.
So it's very Yonko, so we'll be selling shirts.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's a real question, and it's of like who made it, who like, and like, well, the pencil maker didn't make the drawing. If you drew with a pencil, we understand that. But did, or like if you use Photoshop, even though
Hmm.
that's a lot of stuff that you might not even understand how it was made, we still agree that you made it, you
Yeah.
know?
Mhm.
So but like, where is that line? You know, like how
Yeah.
much how much of it is you on a roller coaster, and how much of it is you driving a car? It's not all the way clear, especially with this new AI stuff, and it's shown up, and it's already so developed that
Mhm.
it now maybe it's one of those things, like, if remember, like with the PS1, PS2, we were
Mhm.
like, these graphics change the world. Now you look at them, you're like, oh, these are terrible.
Yeah.
Um, but maybe it's something like that.
Yeah.
But right now, it looks amazing in
Right.
my mind. So what do you have to say?
Well, and I guess there's a couple comparisons like with music because like with most music programs we're gonna go past, but too bad.
Go,
With
dude, take it. This is
yeah,
you.
with most music programs, they will come with like certain sounds.
Hmm.
And not only sounds, like sometimes there's loops or sometimes there's little samples, that have in there. And uh for most of those, they fall in the category of like, open source or freeware or, whatever
Hmm.
it's going to be. And so if you're using those to create something, then, that would be yours in the same way, like using Photoshop or something like that. Um, and as far as I know, there's not a program, similar to what you're talking about, like where you're creating AI music,
Hmm.
but, it certainly could go in that direction. But the other thing is that, you could also look at it as, I don't know what the term in art would be, but like as like the director of the art that you're making. Because I remember actually even back in not high school, it was in college. This artist came to speak, and the way they created art was they would look at they would basically have an idea, and they would hire somebody else to make the art.
Hmm. That's not. I mean, that's not
Mhm.
unusual. Um, a lot of people have done that.
Mhm.
Hearst still does that. If you are a major artist, you have people who work underneath you.
Right.
The
Hmm.
factory existed with Andy Warhol. The guy who
Hmm.
does Super Flat, I don't remember his name. Like, he has stuff. He has people underneath him, and like, it's not the idea of a single artist working. That's fascinating. The idea of a single artist
Hmm.
working alone in a studio is untrue to a certain extent for a lot
Right.
of people.
So it
And
could be that just the AI is like another
I think
employee.
I
Yeah.
think that is a excellent observation, honestly. I
Hmm.
think it's probably one of the more nuanced takes of it. And it
Hmm.
makes me feel good. So
Yeah.
so it's great. It's the perfect take. Yeah, but I think that's gonna be a time because we're already over. And like, that was a very full episode anyway. So
That was we had two major topics in that one.
two major topics, and then I fell.
So, what it was full of drama.
Full of drama.
Plus your cat was going crazy.
Yeah, she got in a mood. She was fine until I started talking about Picasso. Was it Picasso? I
I
got
think so.
the thing that's wild is Picasso. Notable jerk. Notable
Yeah,
jerk. Not a good
exactly.
dude. Not a good
Yeah.
dude.
Beethoven, notable jerk.
Notable
Not a
jerk.
good dude.
Not a good dude. Uh,
Who else?
a third person. Picasso
Yeah.
was the. Oh, who was the Matisse? He was a jerk, I think.
I don't know much about him, but I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, you know who was nice?
He was nice.
I don't know. I hope you were
Oh,
that.
oh. Well, the thing is, like Will Smith, we always thought was a nice guy.
I don't know. I heard that album that he put out. I was less sure. You know who? You know what? I'm gonna argue. Dave Brubeck. Brubeck's always was a stand up dude.
There you go, Dave
Like,
Brubeck. Yeah.
solid dude. Knew what he wanted to do. Did it. Okay.
That's There we go.
Together.
Dave Brubeck.